So in terms of the signs and symptoms of diabetes, individuals would normally present with excessive urination, so they keep urinating, and that can also follow through into the night, so they might be waking up 2-3 times a night to urinate. They're often very thirsty because you're urinating so much, you need to keep replacing the water in your body. And particularly in type 2 diabetes, you might get individuals who also can have other symptoms that might even relate to their weight and also things like hunger. A type 2 diabetic is likely to be overweight, whereas a type 1 diabetic is likely to have lost weight. Fatigue is also very common because if you can't get glucose into the cells effectively, then those cells can't use glucose, which means they cannot produce energy quite as effectively. So people become tired. When glucose builds up in high quantities, it can also deposit in the lens of the eyes. And what will happen then is it causes the lens to start to become disorganized, and it causes blurry vision. It's also worth bearing in mind that glucose is a nutrient that bacteria absolutely love. Bacteria will take in all of the glucose and they will start to manufacture even more of their cells by copying themselves and cloning themselves. So by having lots of sugar around, it does cause other organisms like bacteria and fungus to start thriving. Diabetes would then normally be diagnosed using blood tests. Blood tests are certainly the most accurate form of diagnosis. And then the last point I just want to make here is this point about why it is so important to manage blood sugar levels, because this is often poorly explained to diabetic patients, and I'm always finding myself having to give this explanation to my clients because they simply don't understand. High blood sugar levels is very damaging for every single blood vessel in your body. That includes big blood vessels like the aorta and the coronary artery and the carotid artery in the neck, but also the small blood vessels like those in the retina in the eye, and those in the kidneys and those in your feet. And subsequently, we do get these complications associated with diabetes that we must understand. Firstly, most diabetics will have an elevated blood pressure. They will also be much more vulnerable to heart disease, such as angina and heart attacks, and also strokes. Remember back to our cardiovascular system lecture, that process of atherosclerosis, where we create those plaques in the arterial walls, can be made much worse by having high levels of blood sugars, and that's ultimately what happens here in diabetes. Diabetes can also cause damage to the retina and ultimately blindness. It can damage the kidneys, and kidney disease occurs in about 40% of all diabetics. Diabetic patients can also damage the nerves in their feet, which might cause the nerve supply to be reduced, meaning that people have tingling in their feet, and they can also have problems with sensation, so they might not be able to feel something on their feet, and they might also have a loss of balance.